The massive space station called Kepler Station floated in the empty space between three star systems. It was the biggest trading post in the galaxy. Ships from hundreds of different worlds came here every day to buy, sell, and make deals. The station was so large that it had its own weather inside the main dome. Ambassador Yuki walked through the busy market halls. She was tall and thin like all her people from the Altarian Federation. Her blue skin had silver marks that showed her high rank. Today she was meeting with traders from the copper worlds to discuss mining rights. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. The market was full of strange sounds and smells. Yuki passed shops selling glowing crystals from the ice moons, spice vendors with goods that could burn your tongue off, and weapon dealers showing off their latest plasma rifles. She had seen it all before. After 20 years as an ambassador, nothing surprised her anymore. That was about to change. A loud alarm started ringing through the station. The market crowd stopped talking and looked around with worried faces. Red lights flashed on the walls. Yuki touched the communication device. On her wrist. "Control Center, this is Ambassador Yuki. What is the emergency?" "Ambassador, we have an unknown contact approaching the station," came the reply. The voice sounded nervous. "The ship design is not in our database. We have never seen anything like it." Yuki frowned. Every ship design in the galaxy was recorded in the station's computer system. New designs were rare, and they were always based on old ones. "How big is the ship?" "Not very big, Ambassador. About the size of a fast courier ship, but it appeared from nowhere. Our sensors show it came from the void between galaxies." That was impossible. No ship could travel between galaxies. The distance was too great, and there was nothing but empty space out there. "Are you sure about the readings?" "Yes, Ambassador. The ship is requesting permission to dock. It says its name is JÖRMUNGAND." Yuki had never heard that name before. It sounded ancient, like words from the old myths. "What species is the pilot?" "Unknown, Ambassador. The pilot calls himself Captain Taewoo of the Terran Republic. We have no record of any species called Terrans or any place called Terra." The crowd in the market was getting louder. Word was spreading fast that something strange was happening. Yuki could see fear in the faces around her. People did not like unknown things. "I am going to the control center," Yuki said into her communicator. "Do not let the ship dock until I get there." She pushed through the crowd and took a transport tube to the station's command level. The control center was busy with activity. Dozens of technicians sat at glowing screens, tracking the unknown ship. The main display showed a picture of the vessel. Yuki stopped and stared. The ship was beautiful. It was long and smooth, with a silver hull that seemed to glow with its own light. The design was unlike anything she had ever seen. It looked both very old and very advanced at the same time. Commander Jinwoo stood at the center of the room. He was the head of station security, a short man with scars on his face from old battles. He looked worried. "Ambassador," he said, when he saw her. "This ship is giving me a bad feeling. It appeared without warning, and our best sensors cannot tell us what it is made of. Have you tried scanning the pilot?" "Yes. The scans show one life form inside, but the readings are strange. The being seems very similar to several known species, but not exactly like any of them." On the main screen, a new message appeared. It was written in perfect universal standard, the common language used by all civilized species. "Kepler Station Control. This is Captain Taewoo of the ship JÖRMUNGAND. I request permission to dock at your station. I come in peace and wish to speak with your leaders." The voice that spoke the message was calm and clear. It sounded young, but there was something old about it, too. something that made Yuki feel small. "How does he speak universal standards so well?" asked Dr. Hyeri, the station's top scientist. She was a small woman with green skin and large eyes. "His accent is perfect, but we have never heard of his species." Yuki thought about this. Universal Standard had taken thousands of years to develop. It was a mix of languages from dozens of different worlds. How could someone from outside the galaxy know it so well? "Captain Tewu," Yuki spoke into the communication system. "This is Ambassador Yuki of the Altarian Federation. Before we can allow you to dock, we need to know more about you and your people. I understand your concern, Ambassador. My people have been traveling for a very long time. We know much about the galaxy and the species that live here. I have come with important information that your people need to hear." "What kind of information?" There was a pause. When the voice came back, it sounded sad. "Information about a threat that is coming. A threat that could destroy all life in the galaxy." The control room became very quiet. Everyone stopped what they were doing to listen. Commander Jinwoo stepped forward. "What kind of threat? How do we know you are telling the truth?" "You do not know me, so you have no reason to trust." "Me?" the voice replied. "But soon you will understand. My ship's computer contains star charts of your galaxy, charts that show the location of every world, every space station, every hidden military base, charts that are completely accurate." Dr. Hyeri checked her instruments. "That is impossible. Some of our military locations are top secret. Even we do not share that information between species." "Yet I have it," Captain Tewu said. "I also have biological data on every species in your galaxy, complete genetic records going back millions of years. I know where you came from, and I know where you are going." Yuki felt a chill run down her spine. If this being really had such information, then his people were far more advanced than anyone in the galaxy. But that raised another question. If your people are so advanced, why are you here alone? Where are the rest of your kind? Another pause. This one was longer. "That is a long story, Ambassador. One that is better told in person. May I dock?" Yuki looked around the control room. Everyone was waiting for her decision. As the senior ambassador on the station, the choice was hers to make. She thought about the beautiful ship on the screen and the mysterious pilot inside. She thought about the claims he was making and the threat he said was coming. Most of all, she thought about the sadness in his voice when he spoke. "Permission granted, Captain Tewu. You may dock at Bay 7, but you will be met by a full security team." "I understand. Thank you, Ambassador." The communication ended. On the screen, they watched the ship called JÖRMUNGAND move slowly toward the docking bay. Its silver hull caught the light from the nearby stars, making it look like a falling star. Yuki did not know it yet, but everything in the galaxy was about to change. The arrival of one small ship would start a chain of events that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. And somewhere in the dark space between galaxies, ancient enemies were stirring. The docking bay was full of armed guards when JÖRMUNGAND settled onto the landing platform. Ambassador Yuki watched from behind a thick glass wall as the silver ship powered down its engines. The vessel was even more beautiful up close. Its hull seemed to be made of liquid metal that flowed like water but stayed solid. Commander Jinwoo stood beside her with his hand on his weapon. "I have 20 guards in there, all with heavy plasma rifles. If this Captain Tewu tries anything dangerous, we can stop him." Dr. Hyeri was studying readings on her tablet. The ship's energy signature is unlike anything in our database. It is putting out power levels that should require a reactor the size of a building, but the ship is too small for that. Yuki nodded but kept watching the ship. A door opened in its side, but no ramp came down. Instead, the door just hung in the air about 3 meters above the docking bay floor. "How is he going to get down?" Commander Jinwoo asked. They got their answer when a figure appeared in the doorway. Captain Taewoo was tall and looked almost like a standard humanoid, but there was something different about him. His skin was pale, and his hair was dark. He wore a simple black uniform with no markings or symbols. What surprised everyone was what he did next. He simply stepped out of the ship and floated gently down to the floor. He was not wearing any kind of flying equipment, but he moved through the air as easily as walking. The guards pointed their weapons at him, but he held up his hands to show he was not armed. When his feet touched the ground, he smiled and looked directly at the window where Yuki was standing. "Impressive technology," Dr. Hyeri whispered. "Personal gravity control. We do not have anything like that." Yuki activated the communication system. "Captain Taewoo, welcome to Kepler Station. Please remain where you are while we complete security procedures." "Of course, Ambassador. I understand your caution." His voice was calm and friendly. Looking at him, Yuki found it hard to believe. He was dangerous. He seemed young, maybe 30 years old by human standards, but his eyes looked much older. "Commander, scan him for weapons," Yuki ordered. Jinwoo activated the security scanners. The results appeared on his screen, and his face went pale. "Ambassador, you need to see this." Yuki looked at the scanner results. According to the readings, Captain Taewoo was not carrying any weapons, but the scanners were also showing something impossible. His body was made of normal biological matter, but there were energy patterns running through him that looked like a computer network. It was as if he was part machine and part living being. "Is he some kind of android?" Yuki asked. "No," Dr. Hyeri said, studying the data. "He is definitely alive, but his biology is enhanced in ways I have never seen before. His brain is connected to systems I do not recognize." Yuki made a decision. "I am going down there to meet him." "Ambassador, that might not be safe," Commander Jinwoo warned. "If he wanted to hurt us, he could have done it already. His ship appeared without warning and got past all our defenses. If he is hostile, 20 guards will not stop him." Yuki took the elevator down to the docking bay. When the doors opened, she walked across the metal floor toward Captain Taewoo. Up close, she could see that he really did look very young, but there was something in his expression that spoke of great age and experience. "Ambassador Yuki," he said with a slight bow. "Thank you for allowing me to dock. I know this situation is unusual." "That is putting it mildly, Captain. Your ship appeared from nowhere, and our computers have no record of your species or your government. Where exactly do you come from, Taewoo?" Looked around the docking bay, taking in the design of the station and the equipment. "Your people have built something impressive here, a place where different species can meet and trade in peace. It shows wisdom." "You did not answer my question." "You would not believe the answer if I told you. Perhaps it would be better if I showed you instead. Would you like to see my ship?" Yuki looked back at the observation window where she knew Commander Jinwoo was watching. She touched her communicator to let him know she was all right. "Your ship has no boarding ramp," she pointed. "Out," Taewoo smiled. "That is not a problem." He held out his hand to her. "Trust me." Against her better judgment, Yuki took his hand. Immediately, she felt a strange, tingling sensation. The next thing she knew, they were both floating up toward the open door of The ship! How are you doing this? She asked, trying not to panic. My people have learned to work with the fundamental forces of the universe in ways your science has not yet discovered. Do not worry. You are perfectly safe. They floated through the door and into the ship. Yuki expected to see a cramped cockpit like most small vessels had. Instead, she found herself in a large room with walls that seemed to stretch much farther than the ship's outside dimensions allowed. This is impossible, she said. The ship is not big enough for this space. Space is more flexible than most people realize, Tae-woo replied. But you are right to be confused. This technology is far beyond what your people currently understand. The AI walls of the room were covered with displays showing star charts and data streams. Yuki recognized some of the constellations, but the level of detail was incredible. She could see individual planets, moons, and space stations marked with perfect accuracy. These charts, she said. How do you have information about classified military bases? Because my people helped build many of them. We have been watching the development of galactic civilization for a very long time. Dr. Hyeri's voice came through Yuki's communicator. Ambassador, are you all right? We lost contact for a moment. I'm fine, Yuki replied. Dr. Hyeri, you need to see this. The ship's interior is much larger than its exterior. That is impossible according to our physics. Tae-woo smiled. Dr. Hyeri is welcome to come aboard. I think she would find the ship's computer system very interesting. A few minutes later, Dr. Hyeri and Commander Jinwoo floated up to join them. Both looked amazed by the ship's interior. Dr. Hyeri immediately went to examine the wall displays, while Jinwoo stayed close to Yuki with his hand on his weapon. Captain, Dr. Hyeri said, these biological charts show evolutionary data for every known species in the galaxy. But according to this information, none of our species evolved naturally. It looks like someone guided our development over millions of years. That is correct, Tae-woo said. Who would do such a thing? And why? Tae-woo walked to the center of the room and touched a control panel. The wall displays changed to show images of different species throughout galactic history. Yuki saw the rise and fall of ancient civilizations, the development of interstellar travel, and the formation of the current galactic government. The answer to your question is simple, Tae-woo said. We did it. My people guided your evolution and development for millions of years. Commander Jinwoo stepped forward. What people? What species are you? We are called humans. And long ago, we were the gardeners of this galaxy. Yuki felt the room spinning around her. You are saying that your people are the ancients mentioned in our oldest myths? The first ones who supposedly created all life in the galaxy? We did not create life. But we helped it grow and develop. We protected young civilizations from dangers they could not handle. We guided evolution to help species reach their potential. Dr. Hyeri was staring at the displays with wide eyes. If this is true, then humans are the most advanced species in the galaxy. Where are the rest of your people? Why are you alone? For the first time, Tae-woo's expression became sad. That is a much longer and more difficult story. My people are not gone, but they are not here either. We had to leave the galaxy long ago to protect all of you from something terrible. What kind of something? Commander Jinwoo asked. Tae-woo touched the control panel again. The displays changed to show images of dark shapes moving between the stars. The shapes seemed to eat light itself, leaving nothing but empty space behind them. We call them the Devourers. They come from the void, between galaxies, and they consume consciousness itself. They are drawn to advanced civilizations like predators drawn to prey. Yuki felt cold fear creeping into her heart. Are you saying these devourers are coming here? They are already here, Ambassador. That is why I have returned. The protection my people provided is ending, and your galaxy is about to face its greatest test. The ship's computer suddenly activated, displaying a stream of warning signals. Red lights flashed on the walls as alarms began to sound. What is happening? Dr. Hieri asked. Taewoo's face went pale as he read the displays. Long-range sensors are detecting movement in the outer rim. Several star systems have gone silent in the past few hours. Silent how? Commander Jinwoo demanded. They are not there anymore. The devourers have begun their harvest. Dr. Hieri could not believe what she was seeing on the ship's displays. The computer was showing biological data for every species in the galaxy, but the information went far beyond anything their own scientists had discovered. She was looking at genetic codes that traced back millions of years, evolutionary paths that had been carefully guided and shaped. This cannot be real, she whispered, running her fingers over the control panel. The surface responded to her touch, bringing up new screens of data. According to this, every major evolutionary step in galactic history was influenced by outside forces. Captain Taewoo stood beside her, watching her reaction. Your people call it evolution, but it was more like gardening. My species helped guide the development of intelligent life throughout the galaxy. Ambassador Yuki was studying star charts on another wall. If humans are really the ancients from our myths, then you have been gone for over 1,000,000 years. How can you still be alive? Time works differently when you are no longer bound by physical limitations, Taewoo replied. My people learned to exist beyond the normal boundaries of matter and energy, but maintaining physical form requires great effort. Commander Jinwoo was more interested in practical matters. You said the devourers are already here. How many? What kind of weapons do they have? Taewoo touched a control, and the displays changed to show the outer edge of the galaxy. Several star systems that had been marked in blue were now red or had disappeared entirely from the charts. The devourers do not use weapons as you understand them. They consume consciousness directly. When they feed on a civilization, not only do the people die, but all memory of them is erased from the universe. It is as if they never existed at all. Dr. Hieri felt sick to her stomach. You mean they can make entire species disappear completely? More than that. They consume the very concept of those species. After the devourers feed, no one remembers that the victims ever lived. Their history, their culture, their achievements, all of it is eaten. Yuki turned away from the star charts. How is that possible? Information cannot just disappear. Information is a form of energy, and energy can be consumed, Taewoo explained. The devourers exist partially outside normal space-time. They can reach into the past and future to erase their victims from every moment they ever existed. The three galactic representatives stood in shocked silence. The idea was too horrible to fully understand. Commander Jinwoo finally found his voice. If these creatures are so powerful, how did humanity fight them before? We did not fight them. We ran. Taewoo's expression was full of sadness. When the devourers first appeared in our galaxy, humanity had already transcended physical form. We realized that our advanced consciousness was what attracted them, so we made a choice. He touched the controls again, and the display showed an image of countless ships leaving the galaxy. But these were not normal ships. They looked like pure light moving through space. We left the galaxy and led the devourers away into the void. Between galaxies, we hoped that without advanced consciousness to feed on, they would lose interest in this region of space. Dr. Hieri was studying the departure images. How many humans left? All of them. Every member of our species except for a few who volunteered to stay behind as guardians. We have been fighting the devourers in the void for 1,000,000 years, keeping them distracted and preventing them from returning here. But now they are back, Yuki said. Yes, our defenses have finally failed. The devourers have found their way back to the galaxy, and they are hungrier than ever. Commander Jinwoo activated his communicator. I need to contact Galactic Command immediately. Every species needs to know about this threat. Wait, Taewoo said. Before you do that, you need to understand the full situation. The galaxy has changed since we left. Your civilizations have grown and developed in ways we did not expect. The displays changed to show current galactic politics, trade routes, military alliances, territorial disputes, and ongoing conflicts between different species. Your people have become divided. You fight over resources and territory instead of working together. The devourers will use these divisions against you. Yuki studied the political maps. You are right. The galactic government is barely holding together. Some species refuse to even trade with each other. That is a problem, Taewoo said. Unity is the only defense against the devourers. They feed on conflict and chaos. A divided galaxy will be consumed easily. Dr. Hieri was still examining the biological data. Captain, according to this information, every galactic species has dormant genetic markers that were placed there by humans. What do these markers do? Taewoo looked uncomfortable. They are a gift and a responsibility. When activated, those markers will allow your species to develop abilities similar to what humanity achieved. But the activation can only happen under extreme circumstances. What kind of circumstances? When facing extinction, the markers respond to existential threat by unlocking potential that has been sleeping for millions of years. Commander Jinwoo stepped forward. You are talking about evolution in real time. Can these abilities help us fight the devourers? Perhaps. But first, your people must prove they can work together. The markers will not activate for a divided galaxy. Alarms suddenly began sounding throughout the ship. The displays flashed red as new data appeared. Taewoo's face went pale as he read the information. What is it? Yuki asked. Long-range sensors are detecting massive movement at the galactic rim. The Devourer main force has arrived. The display showed a horrifying image. Dark shapes were moving between the stars at the edge of the galaxy. There were thousands of them, maybe millions. They moved like a black tide, consuming everything in their path. How long do we have? Dr. Hieri asked. Taewoo was calculating something on the ship's computer. At their current speed, the main force will reach the core systems in approximately 6 months. But their scouts are already spreading throughout the galaxy. 6 months to unite every species in the galaxy, Commander Jinwoo said. That is impossible. Some of our people have been enemies for thousands of years. Then they will have to choose between old grudges and survival, Taewoo replied. Because if the galaxy remains divided, everyone will die. Dr. Hieri was studying the Devourer images. These creatures look different from anything in our xenobiology databases. They do not seem to follow normal physical laws. They do not come from normal space, Taewoo explained. The Devourers exist in 11 dimensions, while your science only understands 3. That is why conventional weapons cannot hurt them. Then how do we fight them? Yuki asked. Taewoo touched the control panel, and new displays appeared showing weapon designs unlike anything they had ever seen. The weapons looked more like pieces of art than military equipment, with flowing curves and crystalline structures. These are human-designed weapons that can affect multidimensional beings. But they require technology your civilizations do not yet possess. Can you give us that technology? Commander Jinwoo asked. Some of it, but much of it requires the activation of those genetic markers I mentioned. Your people must evolve beyond their current limitations to use the most powerful weapons. Dr. Hyeri was studying the weapon designs. This technology is based on consciousness manipulation rather than physical force. It treats thoughts and ideas as weapons. Exactly. The devourers consume consciousness, so consciousness is the only thing that can hurt them. But it must be focused consciousness, unified and directed with perfect precision. Yuki understood the implications. You are saying we need every species in the galaxy to think and act as one. More than that. You need them to become one. The barriers between different types of consciousness must be removed. Only a truly unified galactic mind can defeat the devourers. Commander Jinwoo shook his head. Ambassador, with respect, this is impossible. We can barely get 3 species to agree on trade policies. How can we unite thousands of different civilizations? Before Yuki could answer, the ship's computer activated again. This time, the alarm was even louder. Another system has gone silent, Taewoo announced, his voice grim. The Cygnus colonies! 40 billion people, gone without a trace. Dr. Hyeri checked her instruments. I am not detecting any distress signals or evacuation ships. They just disappeared. That is how the devourers work. One moment a civilization exists, and the next moment it never existed at all. Yuki felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. As the senior ambassador on Kepler Station, she would have to be the one to contact the galactic government. She would have to convince species that had been enemies for centuries to work together. Captain Taewoo, she said, will you help us? Will you share your technology and knowledge? I will do everything I can. But remember, I am only one human. The rest of my people are still fighting in the void, keeping the main devourer force from advancing too quickly. How long can they hold them? Taewoo looked at the tactical displays showing the battle in the space between galaxies. Not long. My people have been fighting for 1,000,000 years. They are tired, and their strength is failing. The 3 galactic representatives looked at each other, understanding the magnitude of what they faced. They had 6 months to achieve, something that had never been done before. True unity among all the species of the galaxy. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the largest gathering in the organization's history. Representatives from over 300 species filled the massive chamber on Kepler Station. The air was thick with tension and the sounds of dozens of different languages being translated in real time. Ambassador Yuki stood at the central podium, looking out at the sea of alien faces. Some were friendly species that had worked with the Altarian Federation for centuries. Others were from governments that barely tolerated each other. A few were representatives of species that had been actively at war just months ago. Fellow beings, Yuki began, her voice amplified throughout the chamber. We face a threat unlike anything in galactic history. I know many of you think this emergency session is unnecessary. Some of you believe the reports from the Outer Rim are exaggerated. Angry voices rose from the crowd. Ambassador Korex of the Vorlak Empire stood up, his red scales flashing with irritation. Ambassador Yuki, we have heard these claims about mysterious attackers, but where is the proof? A few lost communications with remote colonies is not evidence of some galaxy-ending threat. Murmurs of agreement came from several sections of the chamber. The Vorlak Empire controlled dozens of systems and had one of the largest military forces in the galaxy. If they did not believe the threat was real, many other species would follow their lead. "The proof is standing right here," Yuki replied, gesturing toward Captain Taewoo. The human captain had been waiting quietly at the side of the chamber. Now he walked to the center of the room, and the crowd fell silent. Many of the representatives had never seen a human before. His appearance was strange to them, too similar to many other species, yet somehow different from all of them. "Honorable representatives," Taewoo said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's sound system. "My name is Captain Taewoo, of the human race. I am here to warn you about an enemy my people have been fighting for over 1,000,000 years." Delegate Mira of the Silicon Collective raised one of her crystalline arms. "Captain, we have no record of any species called humans in our historical databases. How do you explain this?" "Because you know us by a different name. In your oldest myths and religious texts, you call us the Ancients or the First Ones. We are the species that guided galactic development from the beginning." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Some representatives laughed, thinking this was some kind of joke. Others looked frightened by the implications. The Ancients were legendary, beings from the earliest stories of every galactic civilization. Ambassador Korax slammed his clawed hand on his desk. "This is ridiculous. The Ancients are myths, stories told to children. No one seriously believes they were real." "Then explain this," Taewoo said. He activated a small device he was carrying, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. The displays showed detailed star charts of the entire galaxy, including the locations of every military base, every hidden research facility, and every classified government installation. The chamber went completely quiet. Many representatives were staring at charts showing their own species' most secret locations, information that was supposed to be known only to their highest military commanders. These charts show classified information from every government. "Represented here," Taewoo continued. "Information that my people collected while we were guiding your development over millions of years." Dr. Hyeri stood up from the Altarian delegation. "Captain Taewoo, please show them the biological data." The displays changed to show evolutionary trees for every known species. But these were not the evolutionary charts found in science textbooks. These showed genetic modifications that had been made over millions of years, careful adjustments that had guided each species toward intelligence and civilization. Every species in this chamber carries genetic markers placed there by my people, Taewoo explained. Markers that helped you evolve beyond simple animal intelligence. Markers that can still be activated under the right circumstances. Commander Jinwoo activated his communicator and contacted the station's long-range sensors. "All representatives, I am putting the latest sensor readings on the main display." A new hologram appeared, showing the outer edge of the galaxy. Large sections that had been filled with stars and planets now showed as empty space. Entire star systems had vanished completely. 47 star systems have gone silent in the past week, Jinwoo announced. "Not destroyed, completely gone. Our sensors show no debris, no radiation, nothing. It is as if those systems never existed." The mood in the chamber changed. Representatives who had been skeptical now looked worried. The loss of 47 star systems meant billions of people had died. Ambassador Korex stood again. Even if this threat is real, what can we do about it? You are asking us to believe that mythical creatures are eating entire solar systems. Not mythical, Taewoo said grimly. The devourers are very real. They come from the void between galaxies, and they feed on consciousness itself. My people have been keeping them away from this galaxy for 1,000,000 years. Where are the rest of your people now? Asked Delegate Mira. Taewoo's expression became sad. Fighting and dying in the space between galaxies. They are trying to slow down the main devourer force, but they cannot hold them much longer. The chamber was silent as the representatives absorbed this information. Finally, Ambassador Yuki spoke again. Captain Taewoo has technology that can help us fight these devourers. But there is a condition. What kind of condition? Ambassador Korex demanded. Unity, Taewoo replied. The weapons that can hurt the devourers require perfect cooperation between all galactic species. They cannot be used by divided civilizations. This caused another outbreak of angry voices. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years were being asked to work together as if they were one people. This is impossible, shouted Representative Zolt of the hegemony. Our people have fundamental differences that cannot be resolved. We have been at war with the Vorlak Empire for 3 centuries. And we will continue to be at war, Ambassador Korex replied angrily. The Vorlak will never submit to hegemony rule. No one is asking you to submit to anyone, Yuki said, trying to calm the situation. Captain Taewoo is asking us to work together. To survive. Taewoo stepped forward again. Let me show you what happened the last time the Devourers attacked a galaxy. The holographic displays changed to show images of a distant galaxy. At first it looked normal, with billions of stars and planets. Then dark shapes began moving between the stars. As they moved, the stars began disappearing, not exploding or burning out, simply vanishing as if they had never been there. This galaxy had over 1 trillion inhabitants, Taewoo said. Hundreds of different species, many more advanced than your current civilizations. They tried to fight the Devourers individually. Each species used their own weapons and tactics. The images showed massive space battles as various alien fleets attacked the dark shapes. But the weapons had no effect. The dark creatures continued consuming stars and planets, growing larger and stronger with each meal. Within 10 years, the entire galaxy was gone. Not just the people, everything. Stars, planets, space itself. The Devourers consumed it all. The final image showed empty space where the galaxy had once been. Nothing remained but a few scattered particles of dust. The chamber was completely silent. Even the most skeptical representatives now understood the magnitude of the threat. Dr. Hyeri stood up. Captain, you said our genetic markers can be activated. What would that do? It would unlock abilities that your species have never used. Enhanced consciousness, the ability to affect reality through focused thought, direct mental communication across vast distances. But the activation requires absolute trust between all species. Why? Asked Delegate Mira. Because the process connects all galactic consciousness into a single network. If there is hatred or mistrust between species, the network will tear itself apart. Ambassador Korex laughed bitterly. So we have to choose between our old enemies and extinction. That is not much of a choice. It is the only choice, Taewoo replied. The Devourers are already spreading through the galaxy. Each day you delay, more systems will be consumed. Commander Jinwoo activated the sensor display again. 3 more star systems had gone silent while they had been talking. "We do not have time for long debates," Yuki said. "I propose an immediate vote. All in favor of galactic unity against the Devourer threat?" Hands, claws, and appendages rose throughout the chamber, but not enough. Many representatives sat with their arms folded, unwilling to commit to working with their traditional enemies. Taewoo watched the failed vote with growing concern. "You have 6 months before the main Devourer force arrives. If you cannot achieve unity by then, this galaxy will suffer the same fate as the one I showed you." He turned and walked toward the exit. "I will remain at Kepler Station for now. When you decide you are ready to put aside your differences and fight for survival, you know where to find me." As the human captain left the chamber, the representatives began arguing among themselves. Old grudges and territorial disputes seemed more important to them than the threat of complete extinction. Ambassador Yuki watched the chaos with growing despair. Outside, more star systems were disappearing every hour. And inside the chamber, the end. 3 weeks had passed since the failed Galactic Council meeting, and the situation was getting worse every day. Ambassador Yuki stood in the observation deck of Kepler Station, watching refugee ships arrive from the outer rim systems. The ships were overcrowded and damaged, carrying survivors from worlds that had barely escaped the advancing Devourers. "Another convoy from the Centauri sector," Commander Jinwoo reported, joining her at the window. "That makes 15,000 refugees. This week alone, we are running out of space to house them all." Yuki nodded grimly. "How many systems have we lost now?" 137 confirmed gone, but the real number is probably higher. Communication with the outer rim has become very difficult. The refugees were from dozens of different species, all fleeing the same terror. They told stories of entire worlds simply vanishing without warning. One moment their planets were there, and the next moment there was only empty space. No explosions, no wreckage, no trace that billions of people had ever lived there. "Any word from the Galactic Council?" Yuki asked. Jinwoo shook his head. "Still arguing. The Vorlak Empire and the Hegemony are blaming each other for the attacks. The Silicon Collective thinks this might be some kind of new weapon being tested by rival governments. Half the species refuse to believe the Devourers are real. Even with all the evidence we have shown them?" "Fear makes people do strange things, Ambassador. It is easier to believe in familiar enemies than to accept that something impossible is trying to kill everyone." Dr. Hyeri approached them, carrying a data tablet with the latest research results. "Ambassador, I have been analyzing the reports from the refugee ships. There is a pattern to the Devourer attacks." "What kind of pattern?" "They are not choosing targets randomly. The Devourers seem to be attracted to systems with high levels of technological development and large populations. But they are also avoiding certain areas." Yuki studied the data on Hyeri's tablet. "These avoided areas, what do they have in common?" "They are all regions where different species have been working together peacefully. Mixed colonies, joint research stations, combined military bases, places where species cooperation is strong." Commander Jinwoo frowned. "That supports what Captain Taewoo said about unity being important. But it also means the Devourers are smart, enough to recognize cooperation and avoid it. Which makes them much more dangerous than simple predators," Dr. Hyeri added. "They understand the weaknesses in galactic civilization and are exploiting them." The 3 of them stood in worried silence, watching more refugee ships dock at the station. The ships came from a dozen different worlds, but the refugees all had the same expression of terror and loss. "Where is Captain Taewoo now?" Yuki asked. "In his ship," Jinwoo replied. "He spends most of his time monitoring long-range communications, trying to stay in contact with his people in the void." "How are they doing?" "Not well. According to his last report, humanity is losing the battle out there. The main devourer force is much larger than anyone expected." Yuki made a decision. "I am going to talk to him again. Maybe there is something we can do without waiting for the council to stop arguing." She took a transport tube to the docking bay where JÖRMUNGAND was moored. The ship looked the same as always, its silver hull gleaming under the station's lights. But now Yuki could see stress fractures in the metal that had not been there before. Even advanced human technology was showing signs of strain. When she approached the ship, the door opened automatically. She floated up into the interior, still amazed by the technology that allowed the ship to be larger inside than outside. Captain Taewoo was standing in front of a wall display that showed the space between galaxies. The display was filled with flashing lights representing battles being fought in the void. Too many of the lights were red, indicating human defeats. "Captain," Yuki said softly. He turned to look at her, and she was shocked by his appearance. The young-looking human now had lines of exhaustion around his eyes, and his skin looked pale and thin. Maintaining physical form was clearly taking a toll on him. "Ambassador Yuki, have you come with news from the council?" "Nothing good, I am afraid. They are still arguing about politics while the galaxy burns." Taewoo nodded sadly. "I expected this. Unity is not something that can be forced or rushed. It must grow naturally from shared experience and trust. But we do not have time for natural growth. How long can your people hold the main force?" Taewoo studied the battle display. "Perhaps 2 months, maybe less. My people are brave, but they have been fighting for so long. And the devourers seem to be learning from each battle, adapting their tactics. Then we need to start unity efforts on a smaller scale. Dr. Hyeri found that the devourers avoid areas where species are already cooperating. Maybe we can create more such areas." "That is a good idea, but it will require demonstration. People need to see that cooperation works before they will trust it." Yuki thought about this. "What if we showed them? What if we could prove that united forces can actually fight the devourers? The devourers have not sent their main force yet. Only scouts are in the galaxy right now, but even the scouts are dangerous. Could a small united force defeat a scout?" Taewoo considered this carefully. "Perhaps, but it would require perfect cooperation between multiple species, and they would need to use the consciousness-based weapons I mentioned before. Can you teach people to use those weapons?" "I can teach the basic principles, but the weapons only work when multiple minds are linked in perfect harmony. One angry thought, one moment of mistrust, and the weapons will not function." Yuki felt a spark of hope. "What do you need?" "Volunteers from at least 3 different species. People who are willing to trust each other completely and work as one mind. The process is dangerous. If something goes wrong, the mental linking could damage their consciousness permanently." "I will volunteer," Yuki said immediately. "Ambassador, you do not understand the risks. The consciousness linking process will change you. You will never be quite the same person again. If it helps save the galaxy, I am willing to take that risk." Taewoo looked at her with respect. "You remind me of the best of my own people. Very well. But we will need others. Commander Jinwoo will volunteer, and I think Dr. Hyeri will as well. That is a start, but 3 people are not enough. We need representatives from species that have been enemies. If we can get traditional enemies to link their consciousness together, it will prove that unity is possible. Yuki thought about the refugee ships. What about some of the refugees? They have all lost their homes to the devourers. They might be willing to try anything. Possibly. But remember, this is not just about willingness. The people must be able to completely trust each other with their minds and memories. That level of trust is very rare. The ship's alarm system suddenly activated. Red lights flashed as new data appeared on the displays. "What is happening?" Yuki asked. Taewoo's face went pale as he read the information. A Devourer scout has entered the core systems. It is heading directly for the Altarian home world. Yuki's heart stopped. Her home planet had a population of 8 billion people. If the Devourer reached it, not only would everyone die, but it would be as if the Altarian civilization had never existed at all. How long do we have? 18 hours at current speed. Can the Altarian fleet stop it? No. Conventional weapons cannot hurt the Devourers. The Scout will consume your world and everyone on it. Yuki felt panic rising in her chest, but she forced herself to stay calm. Then we need to try your consciousness weapons. Right now. Ambassador, we do not have enough people trained, and we have no time for proper preparation. Then we will have to make do with what we have. Captain, will you help us save my world? Taewoo looked at the tactical display showing the Devourer scout approaching the Altarian system. Then he looked at Yuki's determined face. Yes, he said. I will help you, but understand that this will likely be a suicide mission. We are not ready for this fight. Better to die trying than to watch helplessly while 8 billion people are erased from existence. Taewoo activated the ship's communication system. Commander Jinwoo, Dr. Hyeri, please report to JÖRMUNGAND immediately, and bring any volunteers who are willing to risk their lives to save the Altarian world. As they waited for the others to arrive, Yuki looked at the battle display showing the fights in the void between galaxies. So many red lights indicating human defeats. But there were still some blue lights, showing that humanity was still fighting. Captain, win or lose, I want you to know that your people's sacrifice has not been forgotten, and it will not be in vain. Taewoo smiled sadly. Thank you, Ambassador. That means more to me than you know. Outside, the Devourer scout continued its approach toward the Altarian home world, unaware that a small group of desperate beings was preparing to make the first united stand against the darkness. The emergency team gathered in JÖRMUNGAND's main chamber was smaller than Captain Taewoo had hoped. Ambassador Yuki stood beside Commander Jinwoo and Dr. Hyeri, representing the Altarian Federation. They had been joined by 3 refugees: Kento, a young engineer from the hegemony whose homeworld had already been consumed; Minho, a soldier from the Vorlak Empire who had lost his entire unit to a Devourer attack; and Sora, a scientist from the Silicon Collective whose research station had been one of the first targets. 6 people to save 8 billion, Jinwoo said grimly. The odds are not good. The odds were never good, Taewoo replied. He was standing before a wall display that showed the Devourer scout approaching the Altarian system. But this is not about numbers. It is about unity. Kento stepped forward. His people, the hegemony, had been at war with Minho's Vorlak Empire for 3 centuries. Captain, my people and the Vorlaks have been enemies since before I was born. How can we possibly link our consciousness together? Minho nodded agreement. Every Vorlak child learns that the hegemony cannot be trusted. Asking me to open my mind to this person goes against everything I have been taught. Then you both need to choose what is more important, Sora said in her mechanical voice. As a member of the Silicon Collective, she was part biological and part machine. Your old hatreds or the survival of the galaxy? Dr. Hyeri activated her medical scanner. Captain Tewu, what exactly does the consciousness linking process involve? I will create a temporary network connecting all of your minds. You will share thoughts, memories, and emotions directly. There will be no secrets between you, no privacy, no barriers. For the weapons to work, you must become one unified consciousness. Yuki felt nervous about the idea of sharing her mind with others, but she thought about her home world and the 8 billion people depending on them. How dangerous is the process? If someone in the network feels strong hatred or fear, it can create feedback that damages everyone connected. In the worst case, you could lose your individual identity permanently. The chamber fell silent as the team members considered this. They were being asked to risk everything they were for a chance to save people they had never met. I will do it, Yuki said finally. My people are in danger. I have to try. And I will help, Dr. Hyeri added. If there is even a small chance, this will work. We must take it. Commander Jinwoo nodded. The Altarian fleet is useless against this enemy. This is our only option. Kento looked at Minho with uncertainty. If we do this, you will see all my memories. You will know everything about my people's military plans and secrets. And you will know ours, Minho replied. But what good are military secrets if everyone is dead? Sora's mechanical components hummed as she processed the decision. My people believe that consciousness is the most precious thing in the universe. If sharing mine can save others, then it is the logical choice. Tewu studied each team member carefully. Are you all certain? Once we begin the process, there is no going back. The mental linking will change you permanently. We understand, Yuki said. Begin the process. Tewu activated controls on the ship's wall, and the chamber filled with a soft blue light. Please, stand in a circle and join hands. The physical contact will help stabilize the mental connection. The 6 beings formed a circle. Yuki found herself holding hands with Dr. Hyeri on one side and Kento on the other. Across from her, Minho and Sora completed the circle with Commander Jinwoo and Captain Tewu. Close your eyes and clear your minds, Tewu instructed. I am going to begin the linking process now. Yuki felt a strange, tingling sensation in her head. At first, it was just a mild buzzing, like static electricity. Then it grew stronger, and she began to sense the presence of other minds near her own. The first contact was with Dr. Hyeri. Yuki suddenly found herself experiencing her friend's memories of studying alien biology, her excitement at making new discoveries, and her deep love for scientific knowledge. But she also felt Hyeri's fear about the process they were attempting. Then Commander Jinwoo's mind joined the network. Yuki experienced his memories of military training, his frustration with galactic politics, and his fierce loyalty to protecting civilians. His thoughts were organized and disciplined, like a well-trained soldier. The connection expanded to include Kento. Yuki was surprised to discover that despite being from an enemy government, his thoughts were remarkably similar to her own. He, worried about his family, wanted peace between the species, and felt guilty about the wars his people had fought. When Minho's consciousness joined the network, Yuki expected to feel anger or hatred. Instead, she found a mind full of sadness and regret. Minho had seen too much death in the wars between his people and the hegemony. He did not want to fight anymore. Sora's mechanical mind was the strangest to experience. Her thoughts moved at incredible speed, processing thousands of calculations every second. But beneath the machine logic, Yuki sensed a deep compassion for all forms of consciousness. Finally, Captain Taewoo opened his mind to the network, and Yuki gasped at what she found there. His consciousness was vast and ancient, filled with memories, going back millions of years. She saw the rise and fall of countless civilizations, the careful guidance humanity had provided to developing species, and the terrible sacrifice they had made to protect the galaxy. But she also felt his loneliness. Taewoo had been separated from his people for so long, maintaining physical form while the rest of humanity existed as pure consciousness in the void. He had carried the burden of protecting the galaxy alone. "Now we are one," Taewoo's voice echoed, in all their minds simultaneously. "Feel the unity between us. Let go of your individual fears and become part of something larger." The sensation was overwhelming. Yuki could no longer tell where her thoughts ended and the others began. She experienced Kento's childhood on a hegemony colony world, Minho's first battle against Devourer scouts, Sora's creation in a silicon collective factory, and fragments of Taewoo's million-year journey through space. Most importantly, she felt their shared determination to save the Altarian world. Despite their different backgrounds and species, they all wanted the same thing: to protect innocent life from being consumed. "The weapons are activating," Taewoo announced. "Focus your unified consciousness on the Devourer scout." The ship's displays changed to show the Devourer approaching the Altarian system. It looked like a patch of living darkness, consuming light itself as it moved between the stars. But now, through their linked consciousness, they could see more than just its physical form. The Devourer existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. It was not just a creature, but a force of entropy itself, seeking to return consciousness to the chaos from which it had emerged. It fed on the organized thoughts and memories that made up intelligent life. "It is beautiful," Sora whispered in their shared mind. "Terrible, but beautiful." "It is hungry," Minho added. "So very hungry. It has been starving in the void for eons." "Then we give it something to eat," Yuki said with grim determination. "We give it us." "No," Taewoo corrected. "We give it unity. Consciousness that is too organized and unified for it to consume. We become something it cannot digest." Through their shared awareness, they reached out toward the Devourer scout. The creature sensed their approach and turned its attention toward them. For a moment, Yuki felt overwhelming terror as the thing tried to consume their unified consciousness. But instead of being eaten, their linked minds proved too complex for the Devourer to process. Their unity created patterns of thought that were alien to the creature's nature. It was designed to consume individual consciousness, not the perfectly synchronized awareness of multiple species working as one. The Devourer recoiled, confused and hurt by its contact with their unified mind. For the first time in its existence, it had encountered consciousness that it could not consume. "Now," Taewoo commanded, "while it is confused, focus all our will on sending it away." The six linked consciousness projected a single, Unified thought, go away. The thought carried with it all their combined will, all their determination to protect the galaxy, all their love for the people they were trying to save. The Devourer Scout screamed in dimensions beyond normal hearing. It writhed in pain as their unified consciousness pushed against it, forcing it away from the Altarian system. The creature tried to resist, but it was designed to fight individual minds, not the perfectly coordinated will of multiple species. Slowly, reluctantly, the Devourer began to retreat. It fled back toward the outer rim, carrying with it the memory of consciousness that could not be consumed. The team collapsed as the mental linking ended. They lay on the floor of JÖRMUNGAND's chamber, exhausted but alive. The Altarian world was safe, but as they recovered from the effort, they realized something had changed. Even though the formal mental link was broken, they could still sense each other's thoughts faintly. The process had created permanent connections between them. "We did it," Dr. Hyeri whispered. "We actually hurt a devourer." "More than that," Taewoo said with growing excitement. "You proved that unity works. You showed that species who have been enemies for centuries can become one consciousness when they choose to." Yuki sat up slowly, still feeling dizzy from the experience. But this was... The news of the Devourer's retreat from the Altarian system spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within hours, every major news network was reporting the impossible story of a small team that had somehow driven away an unstoppable enemy. But instead of bringing hope, the news created more chaos. Ambassador Yuki stood in the packed briefing room on Kepler Station, facing representatives from dozens of governments who had come demanding answers. The 6 team members who had linked their consciousness together were still recovering from the experience, but the galaxy would not wait for them to rest. "Ambassador Yuki," called out General Watari of the Altarian Defense Force, "our sensors confirmed that the Devourer Scout was damaged and retreating. How did you accomplish this?" "Through unity," Yuki replied simply. 6 people from different species linked their consciousness together and worked as one mind. "That is impossible," declared Admiral Seok of the Hegemony Fleet. "Consciousness cannot be shared between different species." Dr. Hyeri stepped forward, still pale from the mental linking process. "Admiral, I can assure you it is possible. Captain Taewoo used human technology to create a temporary network between our minds. When we acted as one consciousness, the Devourer could not consume us." "Even if this is true," said Commander Ryu of the Vorlak Empire, "you only defeated one scout. Our intelligence reports show that the main Devourer force contains millions of these creatures." Captain Taewoo had been quiet during the questioning, but now he stood up. The human captain looked even more tired than before. The effort of facilitating the consciousness link had clearly drained him. "Commander Ryu is correct," Taewoo said. "One small team cannot defeat the entire Devourer force. But what we proved is that the method works. Unity is the key to survival." "How many people would we need to defeat the main force?" asked General Watari. "All of them," Taewoo replied. "Every conscious being in the galaxy would need to link together into one unified mind." The room erupted in shocked voices. Representatives argued that such a thing was impossible, that their species would never agree to share consciousness with their enemies. "This is madness," shouted Admiral Seok. "You are asking us to give up our individual identity and become part of some kind of hive mind." "No," Dr. Hyeri corrected. "The consciousness linking does not remove individual identity. We all remained ourselves, but we also became part of something larger." Kento, the young hegemony engineer, stood up slowly. I can confirm this. During the linking, I could still think my own thoughts. But I also understood the thoughts and feelings of everyone else in the network. Minho, the Vorlak soldier, nodded agreement. For the first time in my life, I truly understood why the hegemony, people acted the way they did. I could feel their motivations and fears, as if they were my own. And that is exactly why this will never work, Commander Ryu declared. Our species have been enemies for too long. There is too much hatred and mistrust. Sora, the Silicon Collective, scientist, activated her mechanical voice synthesizer. Commander Ryu, hatred and mistrust are learned behaviors. They can be unlearned when survival is at stake. Before anyone could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed as the station's sensors detected new threats approaching. Commander Jinwoo activated the main display, showing long-range sensor readings. 15 Devourer scouts have entered the core systems simultaneously. They are attacking major population centers across 5 different sectors. The representatives in the room fell silent as they watched the tactical display. The Devourers were no longer just probing the outer rim. They were striking directly at the heart of galactic civilization. How long do we have? Asked General Watari. The nearest attack is 6 hours away, Jinwoo replied. The Centauri colonies, 3 billion people. Can we evacuate them? Admiral Siak asked. Where would they go? Tae-woo replied sadly. The Devourers are attacking everywhere at once. There is nowhere to run. The room was quiet, as everyone absorbed the magnitude of the crisis. 15 major population centers were about to be consumed, and there was nothing their conventional forces could do to stop it. We need more consciousness-linking teams, Yuki said. If one team can stop one scout, then 15 teams can stop. 15 scouts. That would require 90 people willing to link their minds together, Dr. Hyeri calculated. 90 people from different species who trust each other completely. Impossible, Commander Ryu said. We barely managed to find 6 people willing to try at once. Captain Tae-woo was studying the tactical display with growing concern. There is another problem. Creating multiple consciousness links simultaneously will require enormous amounts of energy. My ship does not have the power to support that many networks. What do you need? General Watari asked. The combined power output of every major space station and starship in the galaxy, and even then the process might not work. The consciousness links could interfere with each other if they are not perfectly synchronized. Yuki felt despair creeping into her heart. They had proven that unity could defeat the Devourers, but they could not create unity fast enough to save the galaxy. Then Sora spoke up in her mechanical voice. There might be another way. The Silicon Collective has developed technology for linking multiple artificial intelligences into larger networks. Perhaps we could adapt that technology to support consciousness linking. How long would that take? Tae-woo asked. If we work continuously, perhaps 3 days to modify the existing systems. We do not have 3 days, Jinwoo pointed out. The attacks begin in 6 hours. The room fell silent again. They were trapped between impossible choices. Watch billions of people die, or attempt something that might kill the volunteers who tried it. There is one more option, Tae-woo said quietly. But it is extremely dangerous. What option? Yuki asked. I could contact my people in the void and ask them to return to help, but doing so would mean abandoning their fight against the main Devourer force. The entire enemy fleet would be free to enter the galaxy immediately. How long would we have if the main force entered unhindered? Admiral Siak asked. Perhaps 2 weeks before they reached the core systems. General Watari stood up. 2 weeks to organize galaxy-wide unity or watch everything be consumed immediately. Those are our choices? I am afraid so, Tewu replied. The representatives looked at each other with grim expressions. They were being asked to gamble the entire galaxy on their ability to overcome millions of years of hatred and mistrust in just 2 weeks. I vote to call back the humans, Minho said suddenly. Better to have 2 weeks to try than to watch billions die today. Agreed, added Kento. If we are going to die anyway, let us at least try to save as many as possible. One by one, the other representatives nodded their agreement. Even those who had been most opposed to the consciousness-linking idea understood that they had no other choice. Captain Tewu closed his eyes and activated his ship's long-range communication system. The message he sent was simple but carried enormous weight. My people, it is time to come home. Our children need us. The response came back within minutes. Across the void between galaxies, humanity began to disengage from their million-year battle with the Devourers. They were coming home to make one final stand with their galactic children, but in doing so, they were also unleashing the full fury of the Devourer main force upon the galaxy. The die is cast, Tewu announced. My people will arrive within 48 hours. The main Devourer force will reach the galactic rim in 14 days. Yuki looked around the room at the representatives of dozens of species who had been enemies just hours ago. Now they would have to become one people, one mind, one unified consciousness. Then we have 14 days to achieve something that has never been done before, she said. We have 14 days to unite the galaxy. Outside, space itself began to shimmer as humanity's consciousness started its long journey home. Behind them, in the dark void between galaxies, something vast and hungry began to move toward the galaxy with renewed purpose. The final battle for the survival of consciousness itself was about to begin. The galaxy had never seen anything like what was happening in space around Kepler Station. Thousands of ships from hundreds of different species floated in perfect formation, their crews preparing for the most important battle in galactic history. But this would not be a battle fought with weapons or technology. It would be a battle of minds. Ambassador Yuki stood on the observation deck of the station, watching humanity return home. The human ships were unlike anything she had ever seen before. They looked like liquid light flowing through space, sometimes solid and sometimes transparent. Each ship carried thousands of human consciousness entities who had maintained their connection across the void for 1,000,000 years. It is beautiful, Dr. Hieri said, joining her at the window, and terrifying. The transformation in Dr. Hieri was remarkable. The consciousness-linking process had changed all 6 members of the original team. They could now sense each other's thoughts and emotions even when they were far apart. More importantly, they had become bridges between their species, helping others understand what unity truly meant. How are the preparations going? Yuki asked. Better than expected. The demonstration teams have been working non-stop to show other species that consciousness linking is possible. We now have volunteer teams from over 200 different worlds. Commander Jinwoo approached them, carrying reports from across the galaxy. The Devourer main force has reached the outer rim. Long-range sensors show it is enormous. Millions of creatures spread across thousands of light years. Any word from the evacuation efforts? Most civilian populations have been moved to the core systems, but that just means more people will die if we fail. Captain Tae-woo materialized beside them, his physical form flickering slightly as he maintained connection with his returning people. The strain of coordinating humanity's return was clearly affecting him. "Captain, how many humans have returned?" Yuki asked. "All of them. For the first time in 1,000,000 years, every human consciousness is back in the galaxy. But maintaining physical form for so many is requiring enormous energy. Are they ready for the linking process? Yes, but there is a problem. The consciousness network we need to create will be larger than anything ever attempted. It will require perfect synchronization between every thinking being in the galaxy." Dr. Harry frowned. "How perfect is perfect? If even 1% of participants feel hatred or fear during the linking, the network will collapse. And if the network fails while we are connected to it, the feedback could destroy the consciousness of everyone involved." The weight of this revelation settled over them. They were asking billions of beings to risk their very existence on the hope that ancient enemies could suddenly learn to trust each other completely. "There has to be another way," Commander Jinwoo said. "There is," Tae-woo replied, "but you will not like it." Before he could explain, alarms began sounding throughout the station. The main display activated, showing the approaching devourer force. It looked like a black tide washing across the galaxy, consuming everything in its path. Entire star systems were vanishing as the creatures fed. "They are moving faster than expected," Jinwoo reported. "Estimated time to core systems: 6 days. Yuki felt panic rising, but forced herself to stay calm. "Captain, what is this other way you mentioned?" Tae-woo's expression became grave. "The consciousness network does not need to include everyone. It only needs to include those who can achieve perfect unity. But to generate enough power to affect the entire devourer force, those few minds would need to evolve beyond their current limitations." "What do you mean by evolve?" Dr. Hieri asked. "The genetic markers my people placed in all galactic species millions of years ago. They can be activated to grant abilities similar to what humanity achieved. But the activation process is irreversible and extremely dangerous." Sora appeared on the observation deck, her mechanical form moving with unusual urgency. "Captain Tae-woo, the Silicon Collective has completed analysis of the consciousness linking technology. We can support a network of approximately 50,000 beings simultaneously." 50,000 out of trillions, Yuki said. "How do we choose who participates?" "We do not choose," Tae-woo replied. "They choose themselves. Only those who are willing to permanently sacrifice their individual existence for the greater good can be part of the final network." The group fell silent as they understood what he was asking. The volunteers would not just be risking their lives, they would be giving up their humanity, their individual identity, to become part of something larger. "I will do it," Yuki said without hesitation. "As will I," added Dr. Hieri. "And I," said Commander Jinwoo. One by one, the original team members volunteered, but Tae-woo shook his head. "You 6 are already linked from our first attempt. You will serve as the core of the network, but we need many more, and they must come willingly, understanding the full cost." Over the next 3 days, word spread throughout the galaxy about the volunteer program. The response was overwhelming. Beings from every species came forward, willing to sacrifice their individual existence to save their civilizations. Parents whose children had been consumed by devourers, soldiers who had watched their comrades disappear, scientists who understood That consciousness itself was at stake. The volunteers gathered on ships around Kepler Station. They came from species that had been enemies for millennia, but now they shared a common purpose. Humans worked alongside beings they had guided from the shadows for millions of years. Former enemies trained together, learning to trust each other with their very souls. Kento found himself working with Vorlak soldiers he would have shot on sight just weeks ago. Minho shared stories with hegemony civilians whose worlds his people had attacked. But through the preliminary consciousness exercises, they began to understand each other in ways that went beyond words. "It is remarkable," Sora observed during one training session. "When you can feel someone else's thoughts and emotions directly, hatred becomes impossible. You cannot hate someone whose pain you share." Captain Taewoo spent his time moving between the volunteer groups, helping them prepare for the final linking. But Yuki could see the toll it was taking on him. Maintaining physical form while coordinating with returned humanity was exhausting. Him. "Captain, are you all right?" she asked during a brief break. "I will survive long enough to complete the mission," he replied. "That is all that matters. What will happen to you after the linking?" Taewoo smiled sadly. "I was never meant to remain in physical form for so long. When this is over, I will rejoin my people in whatever form we take next." On the fourth day, the Devourer advance scouts reached the middle systems. The creatures had learned from their previous encounter with unified consciousness. They were now attacking in coordinated groups, trying to overwhelm any resistance before unity could be established. "We cannot wait any longer," Taewoo announced. "The final linking must begin now." The 50,000 volunteers took their positions throughout the fleet. Each ship carried a mixture of species, ensuring that the network would be truly unified. The consciousness-linking equipment, enhanced by Silicon Collective technology, hummed to life throughout the fleet. "Remember," Taewoo broadcast to all participants, "you must let go of everything that makes you individual and become part of something greater. Feel the connection growing between all of us." Yuki closed her eyes as the linking process began. She felt the familiar sensation of other minds joining hers, but this time it was vastly more powerful. Instead of 6 consciousness, she could sense 50,000 beings opening their minds to each other. The experience was overwhelming. She felt the memories and emotions of beings from across the galaxy. The joy of a Centauri artist creating her first sculpture, the determination of a Vorlak warrior protecting his family, the curiosity of a Silicon Collective researcher making a new discovery, the love of parents for children they would never see again. But most powerfully, she felt their unity. Despite coming from different worlds and different species, they all shared the same fundamental desire to protect life and consciousness from being consumed by darkness. "The network is stable," Taewoo announced, his voice echoing in all their linked minds. "Now we must evolve." The genetic markers that humanity had placed in every species began to activate. Yuki felt her consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of her physical brain. She could sense the thoughts of beings on ships light years away. She could feel the flow of energy through space itself. Around her, the other volunteers were undergoing the same transformation. Their physical forms began to glow with inner light as their consciousness evolved beyond normal limitations. They were becoming something new, no longer individual beings, but facets of a single vast intelligence. "The Devourers are approaching the core systems," someone announced in their shared awareness. "It is time." Through their expanded consciousness, they could see the enemy force clearly. The Devourers were not evil in any conventional sense. They were natural forces, like entropy itself, seeking to return organized consciousness to the chaos from which it had emerged. They consumed not out of malice, but because it was their nature. But now they faced something they had never encountered before. Consciousness that was too unified to consume, too organized to break down, too evolved to be digested